Stand at the corner of the Mall and Stable Yard Road in London, and you see it. Clarence House. Pale stucco. 4 stories, elegant, beautiful. But this house was never just a royal residence. For 2 centuries, Clarence House has absorbed everything. Kings who refused palaces, princesses who died alone, bombs that fell from German skies at midnight, and staff who served for decades only to receive termination notices during a funeral. Every generation believed it would be different. Every generation discovered the same truth. Who actually pays when kings need homes? What does it cost to maintain dignity inside walls that have witnessed so much loss? The beauty is real. The cost is real. And the bill always comes due. May 1825. London. John Nash receives the commission. At 73 years old, he is reshaping the capital Regent Street, Regent's Park, the terraces that will define an era. But this project is different. Not a palace, not a grand statement. A house. For Prince William Henry, Duke of Clarence, 3rd son of George III, a sailor who found the Tudor apartments at St. James's Palace too cramped, too dark, too suffocating. Nash knows William, knows his debts, his 10 illegitimate children, his 20-year relationship with actress Dorothea Jordan that ended badly. Knows that William, at 60, recently married Princess Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen, 27 years his junior, in a desperate bid to secure the succession after Princess Charlotte died in childbirth in 1817. The race is on among King George III's aging sons to produce a legitimate heir. The site, a corner plot adjacent to St. James's Palace, facing west onto Stable Yard Road. Not much room. Nash makes it work. The design. Classical proportions, bright stucco, 3 stories above a basement, hipped slate roof. A double portico at the center, leading to an entrance hall. To either side, a breakfast room and dining room. Above, 3 principal reception rooms on the 1st floor. Simple, restrained. Nothing like the extravagance Nash is pouring into Buckingham Palace. William wants domestic comfort, not imperial grandeur. The interior is plain by Nash's standards. Ornamental plasterwork confined to the 1st floor reception rooms, hung with crimson damask, no marble staircases, no gilded ceilings. A gentleman's residence, modest, practical. Nash estimates the cost conservatively. Ground breaks in July 1825. Work proceeds through 1826. Nash makes alterations as construction continues, a door repositioned here, a window enlarged there, room configurations adjusted. The estimates climb. The bills multiply. By completion in 1827, the final cost, £22,232, more than double Nash's original estimate, roughly equivalent to £2.7 million today. Not extravagant by royal standards, but enough to raise eyebrows. Parliament questions the expense. Nash defends his work. William moves in regardless. Stand in that original entrance hall, and the house feels human-scaled, not intimidating. Not designed to impress, designed to live in. Light floods through tall windows. Corridors connect rooms efficiently. The domestic machinery kitchens, servants' quarters, storage occupies the basement, out of sight but essential. William is pleased. Finally, a home that fits. But to understand what Clarence House becomes, we must understand the man who built it and the impossible position he occupied. William Henry, born August 21st, 1765, 3rd son. Not expected to rule, not trained for ceremony. Sent to sea at 13 as a midshipman. The Royal Navy shapes in rough language, direct manner, contempt for pretense. He rises to Rear Admiral by 24, serves in the Caribbean, in New York during the American Revolution. George Washington approves a plot to kidnap him. The plot fails. William sails away, never knowing how close he came to becoming a pawn in revolution. He befriends Horatio Nelson, who writes that William is superior to 2/3 of the naval list and shows exemplary attention to orders. But William is also reckless, argumentative, convinced of his own abilities. In 1789, he pressures his father into making him Duke of Clarence by threatening to run for Parliament, an unthinkable scandal for a royal prince. George III relents, muttering, "I well know it is another vote added to the opposition." William retires from active service in 1790. He wants a command when Britain declares war on France in 1793. He does not get one. So he settles into a different life. Mistress Dorothea Jordan, an actress, known to audiences as Mrs. Jordan. Between 1791 and 1811, they have 10 children together, surnamed Fitzclarence. William writes to a friend, "Mrs. Jordan is a very good creature, very domestic and careful of her children. To be sure she is absurd sometimes and has her humors. But there are such things more or less in all families." They live at Bushy House in Bushy Park, where George III appointed William as ranger. A large residence, room for a growing family. William seems content. Mrs. Jordan writes in late 1809, "We shall have a full and merry house this Christmas. 'Tis what the dear Duke delights in." But by 1811, the relationship ends. Financial pressures. William's debts mounting. Mrs. Jordan performing on stage to support their children, while William enjoys his royal allowance. The breakup is bitter. She dies in poverty in France in 1816. Then everything changes. Princess Charlotte, granddaughter of George III and heir to the throne, dies in childbirth November 1817. Suddenly, the succession is in crisis. George III's sons, George IV, the Prince Regent, Frederick Duke of York, William Duke of Clarence, Edward Duke of Kent race to produce legitimate heirs. William, at 52, must marry. His initial choices are rejected or decline. Finally, Princess Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen agrees. She is 25, home-loving, willing to welcome William's 9 surviving illegitimate children. They marry July 11, 1818, at Kew Palace. For their first year, they live economically in Germany, paying down William's debts. Parliament votes him an increased allowance. He accepts reluctantly. Adelaide suffers 2 miscarriages and gives birth to 2 daughters who die in infancy. No legitimate children survive. In 1820, George III dies. The Prince Regent becomes George IV. William is now second in line, behind Frederick, Duke of York. In 1827, Frederick dies. William, at 61, becomes heir presumptive. He needs a proper London residence. St. James's Palace will not do. And so, Clarence House. William and Adelaide move in 1827. They furnish it simply. They entertain modestly. William is happiest here, away from the formality of court. When he becomes King William IV in 1830, he refuses to move to Buckingham Palace, calling it too grand, too impersonal. He stays at Clarence House, conducting official business at St. James's Palace through a connecting passage Nash creates. 7 years as king. From 64 to 71. A reign dominated by political reform. The Reform Act of 1832 reshapes British democracy. William navigates the crisis with surprising skill, threatening to create 50 new peers if the House of Lords blocks reform. The bill passes. Slavery is abolished throughout most of the British Empire. Child labor is restricted. William prefers Clarence House to Buckingham Palace, even as monarch. The house fits him. Not too grand, not too small, just right. He dies June 20th, 1837, at Windsor Castle, of cirrhosis of the liver and pneumonia. No legitimate children. The crown passes to his niece, 18-year-old Victoria, daughter of Edward, Duke of Kent. Clarence House, built for a duke who became king, now passes to others. June 1837. William is dead. Queen Adelaide moves out of Clarence House. The house passes to William's unmarried sister, Princess Augusta Sophia. Augusta, born November 8, 1768, sixth child of George III, second daughter. Educated at home under Queen Charlotte's watchful eye. Learned languages, history, music, needlework. Lively, extroverted, enjoyed cricket and football with her brothers. Fanny Burney, who observed the royal family closely, wrote that Augusta has a gaiety, a charm about her that is quite resistless, and much of true, genuine, and very original humor. But Augusta, like her 5 sisters, lived in what they called the nunnery. George III refused to let his daughters marry Catholics or commoners. Few suitable Protestant princes existed. The king found fault with every proposed suitor. Augusta formed attachments to Henry Vaughan, one of the king's doctors, to Lieutenant General Sir Brent Spencer, an Irish soldier and royal equerry. She asked her brother, the Prince Regent, for permission to marry Spencer privately, knowing Queen Charlotte would disapprove. The Queen was aghast. The marriage never happened. Augusta never married. Neither did 3 of her sisters. They spent their lives attending their parents, isolated from society, trained for nothing except waiting. After George III's death in 1820, after Queen Charlotte's death in 1818, Augusta gained some freedom. She lived at Frogmore House near Windsor and maintained an apartment at Buckingham Palace. When William died in 1837, she moved to Clarence House. It became her London home for the final 3 years of her life. She attended Victoria's coronation in 1838. She attended Victoria's wedding in February 1840, her last public outing. 7 months later, on September 22, 1840, Princess Augusta Sophia died at Clarence House, age 71. Victoria, notified during a drawing-room ceremony for her birthday, closed the gates of Green Park so traffic would not disturb Augusta's final days. Augusta was buried at St. George's Chapel, Windsor, on October 2, 1840. Her body lay in state at Frogmore First. Crowds came to pay respects. An unmarried princess, denied the life she wanted, remembered more for her charm than her accomplishments. Clarence House passes next to the Duchess of Kent, Victoria's mother, Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. The Duchess, widow of Edward, Duke of Kent, mother of the Queen, a woman whose relationship with her daughter had been poisoned by her controller, Sir John Conroy, who controlled the Duchess's finances and tried to dominate young Victoria's upbringing. When Victoria became queen at 18, she banished her mother from Buckingham Palace to Ingester House in Belgrave Square. Clarence House became a peace offering of sorts. The Duchess lived there from 1840 until her death in 1861. During this period, relations between mother and daughter slowly improved, mediated by Prince Albert. But the Duchess never fully regained Victoria's trust. She died at Frogmore House in 1861. Victoria mourned deeply, perhaps mourning what could have been more than what was. Clarence House sits empty for 5 years, unused, waiting. In 1866, Victoria's second son, Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, moves in. He has married Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna of Russia, daughter of Tsar Alexander II. Alfred makes sweeping changes. A 4th story is added, a Russian Orthodox chapel installed on the 1st floor for his wife. The main entrance is relocated from the west front to the south side, where it remains today. Alfred becomes Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1893, but retains Clarence House as his London base. He dies in 1900. The house passes to his younger brother, Prince Arthur, Duke of Connaught and Strathearn, Queen Victoria's 3rd son. Arthur and his wife, Princess Louise Margaret of Prussia, move in 1901. They remove the partition between 2 first-floor drawing rooms, creating one large space. They redecorate. Arthur is a military man served with distinction throughout the empire. He treats Clarence House as his London command post. For 41 years, Arthur occupies Clarence House. through Edward VII's reign, through George V's reign, through Edward VIII's abdication, through the early years of George VI, through the First World War when Britain's old order collapses, through the interwar years when Europe stumbles toward another catastrophe. On January 16, 1942, Prince Arthur dies at Clarence House, age 91, one of the last living links to Victoria's reign. The house has been his home for over 4 decades. Clarence House, built in 1827, has now sheltered 5 generations of royals. Each lived quietly. Each left modest traces. None transformed the house into a grand palace. It remained what William intended, a residence, not a monument. But the world outside has changed. And in 1942, Britain is at war. September 7th, 1940. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sky over London darkens. 348 German bombers, escorted by 617 fighters, appear over the city. For 2 hours, they drop high explosive bombs and incendiary devices. Fires ignite across the East End. Docks burn. At 8 p.m., guided by the flames, a second wave arrives. The assault continues until 4:30 a.m. By morning, 430 dead, 1,600 injured. Black Saturday. The Blitz has begun. For 57 consecutive nights, London is bombed. Between Black Saturday and December 2nd, 1940, there is never 24-hour period without at least one air raid alert. Often, there are many more. Sirens wail. Families descend into underground stations. Firefighters' battle blazes. Anti-aircraft guns thunder. The city endures. The Luftwaffe expands beyond London. Liverpool, Birmingham, Coventry, Sheffield, Manchester, Southampton, Bristol. On November 14, 1940, more than 500 German bombers destroy much of Coventry's old center, killing over 550 people. The devastation is so complete that the Germans coin a new verb, Coventrieren, to coventrate, to obliterate. London remains the primary target. More than 12,000 metric tons of bombs fall on the capital. Nearly 30,000 civilians die. Famous landmarks are hit: Buckingham Palace, the Houses of Parliament, the Tower of London. On the night of May 10th to 11th, 1941, the final night of the Blitz, 505 German bombers follow the Thames under a bright moon, dropping over 700 tons of high explosives and 86,000 incendiaries. The House of Commons is destroyed. Westminster Hall nearly burns. Big Ben survives, scarred. The night's casualties: 1,364 killed, 1,616 seriously wounded. And in all this, Clarence House is hit. The records do not specify the exact date. Accounts vary. But during the Blitz of 1940-41, enemy bombs strike Clarence House. Damage is significant. Walls crack. Windows shatter. Structural integrity compromised. After Prince Arthur's death in January 1942, the house cannot simply pass to another royal resident. It requires repair. Instead, Clarence House becomes headquarters for the war organization of the British Red Cross and the Order of St. John of Jerusalem. 200 staff members move in. They administer the Red Cross postal message scheme, maintaining contact with British prisoners of war abroad. They coordinate relief efforts. They work around the clock in a damaged building in a city under siege. Imagine it: the elegant reception rooms where Adelaide hosted teas, where Augusta spent her final years, where Arthur entertained military colleagues, now filled with desks, filing cabinets, typewriters, maps on walls, telephones ringing, letters sorted, messages dispatched. The machinery of wartime compassion operating inside a wounded house. For 3 years, Clarence House serves not royalty, but humanitarianism. The house endures. London endures. Britain endures. On May 11, 1941, Hitler calls off the Blitz. The Luftwaffe shifts east toward the Soviet Union. London can breathe. But the war continues. And Clarence House, damaged but functional, remains a Red Cross headquarters through 1942, 1943, 1944, into 1945. On May 8, 1945, victory in Europe. Crowds gather in the streets. Churchill declares a public holiday. At Buckingham Palace, the royal family appears on the balcony. Princess Elizabeth, 19, and her younger sister Princess Margaret slip out into the crowds to celebrate anonymously. The war in Europe is over. Clarence House, built for a duke, home to princesses, headquarters to relief workers, stands battered but intact. The original Nash structure has been heavily damaged. Little of his design will survive restoration. But the house itself endures. Now, in peacetime, it must be made livable again. November 20th, 1947. Westminster Abbey. Princess Elizabeth, 21, marries Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten of the Royal Navy. 26. The first major royal celebration since the war ended. Britain, still under rationing, still rebuilding, watches with joy. Elizabeth saved clothing ration coupons for her wedding dress. Austerity is the word of the age. Privation, sacrifice. Slowly, painfully, Britain climbs out of wartime deprivation. The newlyweds need a home. Not immediately after the wedding, they spend time at Windlesham Moor in Surrey, rented from the Woolton family. But a permanent London residence is essential. Elizabeth's official duties are expanding. As heir to the throne, she needs proximity to Buckingham Palace, to St. James's Palace, to the machinery of monarchy. Clarence House is empty, damaged, neglected, but it has history, location, potential. The decision is made. Clarence House will be prepared for the Princess and the Duke of Edinburgh. Extensive refurbishment begins. This is not simple repair. Much of the damage from the Blitz requires reconstruction. The Victorian additions from Alfred's era, the modifications from Arthur's occupancy, the wear of wartime use, all must be addressed. New electric wiring, new heating systems, new hot water systems, modern plumbing. The infrastructure behind the elegant facade must be rebuilt entirely. Philip oversees the restoration personally. He has strong opinions about design, about modernization, about functionality. The Victorian interiors are given a fresh appearance. Light colors replace heavy damask. The rooms are made brighter, airier, more suited to post-war sensibilities. Philip insists on efficiency. This will be a working royal residence, not a museum. The costs mount. Parliament debates. The royal household absorbs the expense. Finally, in 1949, Clarence House is ready. Elizabeth and Philip move in. Their son, Charles, born November 14, 1948, at Buckingham Palace, is brought to Clarence House. The family settles into domestic life. Elizabeth handles official engagements, tours, visits, ceremonial duties. Philip continues his naval career when possible. Charles has a nursery on an upper floor. On August 15, 1950, Elizabeth gives birth to her second child at Clarence House, Princess Anne. The house, once home to aging royals and spinster princesses, now echoes with the sounds of young children. For the first time in decades, Clarence House feels alive. Not a waiting room, not a widow's refuge, a family home. Staff numbers remain modest compared to Buckingham Palace. Perhaps 30 to 40 full-time employees, private secretaries, household staff, nannies, cooks, valets, cleaners. Everyone works long hours. The Duke of Edinburgh's study becomes a command center for correspondence, for planning, for coordinating the princess's growing public role. Elizabeth takes her responsibilities seriously. She is being groomed for kingship, or rather queenship. Her father, George VI, is not well. He smokes heavily. Stress from the war, from the abdication crisis that thrust him onto the throne, from the weight of duty. It takes a toll. In 1951, George VI's health deteriorates sharply. Elizabeth and Philip undertake a royal tour on his behalf. They depart in January 1952, traveling to Kenya. On February 6, 1952, while Elizabeth and Philip are at Treetops, a remote wildlife lodge, George VI dies in his sleep at Sandringham. He is 56. Elizabeth, 25, is now Queen Elizabeth II. The news reaches her at Treetops. Philip tells her. She returns immediately to London. On February 7th, she arrives at Clarence House as Queen. The next day, she moves to Buckingham Palace. The transition is swift. Duty requires it. Clarence House, after only 3 years as Elizabeth's home, changes hands again. March 1953. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, widowed at 51, moves into Clarence House. Her younger daughter, Princess Margaret, 22, moves in with her. They are an odd pairing. The Queen Mother, beloved, resilient, the woman who stood beside George VI through the abdication crisis, through the war, through everything. Margaret, beautiful, spirited, trapped by circumstance. She wants to marry Group Captain Peter Townsend, a divorced royal equerry. The Church of England, of which her sister is now supreme governor, forbids the marriage. Margaret must choose, love or duty. Eventually, she chooses duty. The relationship ends. She marries photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1960 and moves to an apartment in Kensington Palace. That marriage, too, will fail. The Queen Mother remains at Clarence House. For 49 years, she transforms the house. The morning room is created from what was Philip's study. She installs a Georgian marble chimneypiece, a new plaster ceiling featuring her own crown. In 1960, she opens out 2 rooms on the ground floor to form the garden room, large, sunlit, perfect for entertaining. The house becomes her canvas. She fills it with art. Her collection is extraordinary. 20th century British works, including pieces by John Piper, Graham Sutherland, Walter Sickert, Augustus John. She is a patron of living artists, purchasing works directly from studios, commissioning portraits, supporting talent. The walls of Clarence House become a gallery. She entertains constantly. Foreign heads of state visit Clarence House for tea before meeting the Queen at Buckingham Palace. Garden parties, receptions, dinners. The Queen Mother is charming, warm, perpetually gracious. She wears pastel colors. She waves. She smiles. The public adores her. Behind the charm, infrastructure. Staff numbers remain significant. Clarence House requires cooks, cleaners, butlers, valets, footmen, private secretaries, equerries, ladies-in-waiting. Perhaps 40 to 50 full-time staff at peak. The Queen Mother's annual allowance from the civil list covers her expenses. Parliament debates the amount periodically. Critics question the cost. Supporters argue she represents continuity, stability, tradition. Every Christmas, the Queen Mother invites children from Helen and Douglas House, a children's hospice, to decorate the Clarence House Christmas tree. A Welsh Guard in full uniform places the final decoration on top. Photographs are taken. The press covers it warmly. The Queen Mother, age 80, age 90, age 100, continues the tradition. On August 4, 2000, she celebrates her 100th birthday. A parade, public celebrations. She appears on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, waving. Britain's oldest royal, still active, still beloved. Clarence House has been her home for 47 years. But time, relentless and indifferent, finally closes in. On March 30, 2002, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, dies at Royal Lodge, Windsor. She is 101. The nation mourns. Her coffin lies in state at Westminster Hall. Hundreds of thousands queue to pay respects. The funeral at Westminster Abbey is watched by millions. She is buried beside George VI at St. George's Chapel, Windsor. Clarence House, occupied continuously since 1827, is once again empty. Her grandson, Charles, Prince of Wales, inherits the house. He and his second wife, Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, move in after extensive renovations. They keep many rooms exactly as the Queen Mother left them. Her furniture remains. Her paintings remain. It is a tribute, a memorial, a continuation. Charles lives at Clarence House from 2003 onward. His sons, William and Harry, use it as their London base for years. Clarence House becomes synonymous with Charles's household, his charities, his work. Offices fill the building. Staff numbers grow 101 full-time equivalent employees by 2022, according to Clarence House's annual review. Private secretaries, communications teams, finance staff, household workers, chefs, dressers, valets, butlers. For 19 years, Charles operates from Clarence House. It is his home, his office, his identity. September 8, 2022, Balmoral Castle, Scotland. Queen Elizabeth II dies at age 96 after 70 years on the throne. The longest reign in British history ends. Charles, 73, becomes King Charles III. The machinery of succession activates immediately. Proclamations, ceremonies, mourning, planning for the funeral. The world watches. Britain pauses. But inside Clarence House, a different machinery activates. Legal machinery, employment law. The operations of the household of the former Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall have ceased. As required by law, a consultation process begins. September 12, 2022, Edinburgh. A Thanksgiving service for Queen Elizabeth II at St. Giles Cathedral. Charles and his family attend. While they are at the cathedral, letters are delivered to Clarence House staff. The letters, signed by Sir Clive Alderton, Principal Private Secretary to the King, are direct. The change in role for our principals will also mean change for our household. The portfolio of work previously undertaken in this household, supporting the former Prince of Wales's personal interests, former activities, and household operations will no longer be carried out, and the household at Clarence House will be closed down. It is therefore expected that the need for the posts principally based at Clarence House, whose work supports these areas, will no longer be needed. Up to 100 employees receive these notices. Private secretaries, finance staff, communications team members, household staff, chefs, house managers, dressers, valets, butlers. Many have worked at Clarence House for decades. Some joined when Charles first moved in 2003. Others served even longer. The notices arrive during the Thanksgiving service. Staff members open envelopes, read the words. The shock is immediate. Many believed they would transfer to Buckingham Palace, that Charles would need them in his new role as king. But Charles's official residence is now Buckingham Palace. His offices move there. Clarence House renovations at Buckingham Palace aside, ceases to be the operational center. The Public and Commercial Services Union responds furiously. General Secretary Mark Serwatka calls the decision nothing short of heartless. He continues, while some changes across the households were to be expected, as roles across the royal family change, the scale and speed at which this has been announced is callous in the extreme. Many of these staff will be the same people who have so diligently supported the new king during this period of mourning, working extremely hard over recent days only to be given redundancy notices as thanks. The timing is devastating. Britain is in mourning. These staff members are working around the clock, preparing for the Queen's funeral, coordinating logistics, answering phones, managing correspondence. And in the middle of it all, redundancy notices. Clarence House spokespeople issue a statement. Our staff have given long and loyal service, and while some redundancies will be unavoidable, we are working urgently to identify alternative roles for the greatest possible number of staff. The law requires that no staff will be affected for at least 3 months. Those laid off will receive enhanced redundancy payments beyond statutory minimums. Some will be offered positions in other royal households. Others will receive assistance finding external employment. But for many, the message is clear. Your work here is done. The house you maintained, the offices you ran, the king you served, he no longer needs you. Social media erupts. Commentators debate. Some defend Charles. This is standard practice when a royal household transitions. It happened when George VI died, when the Queen Mother died, when Prince Philip died. Operations cease. Staff are let go. It's regrettable, but necessary. Others condemn the timing, the scale, the perceived callousness. 100 people during a funeral. Staff who worked late every night since the Queen's death, exhausted, grieving, now facing unemployment. Crystal Hobbs, 57, a regular attendee at royal events, tells The Guardian, "I think it's sad. They have families they have to support. Many of them have put in many good years of service, and now they're told, 'We don't want you.' You have to be human about this." The consultation process proceeds. By early 2023, the details are finalized. Some staff transfer to Buckingham Palace. Some find roles in other royal households. Some leave with severance packages. Exact numbers are not disclosed. Clarence House goes quiet. Charles and Camilla, now king and queen consort, remain at Clarence House while renovations continue at Buckingham Palace. They live there. But the bustling offices, the large staff, the operational hub, all that has moved. Clarence House is once again primarily a residence, not a command center. The house, built in 1827 for £22,232, has now outlived 6 monarchs, absorbed a world war, sheltered princesses and kings, and witnessed the end of an era. Stand now at the gates of Clarence House and ask, what is this place? A monument to simplicity that could never stay simple. A house built for a sailor king who preferred it to palaces. A refuge for unmarried princesses denied the lives they wanted. A Red Cross headquarters during the Blitz. A young queen's first home. The Queen Mother's 49-year sanctuary. The Prince of Wales's operational base. And now, a residence again. Every stone carries memory. Every renovation erases something. The original Nash structure, mostly gone, destroyed by bombs and time and the need to modernize. The Victorian additions, partially intact. The Queen Mother's rooms, preserved as tribute. Philip's modern interventions, absorbed into the fabric. Charles's renovations, layered over everything. Clarence House opens to visitors 1 month each summer, typically August. Tourists walk through 5 rooms on the ground floor. They see paintings. They see furniture. They see the garden room where the Queen Mother entertained. They do not see the servants' quarters. They do not see the offices where staff worked. They do not see the basements, the infrastructure, the machinery that keeps the house functioning. The guided tours cost £12.50 per adult. The Royal Collection Trust, which manages the visits, uses the income to fund conservation and public access programs. The tourists take photos. They leave. Clarence House closes again. What they don't see, the parallel existence. Every grand house requires an army of invisible workers. Clarence House, even now, needs cleaners, maintenance staff, gardeners, security personnel. Someone polishes the silverware. Someone dusts the paintings. Someone replaces light bulbs, repairs plumbing, tends the gardens Charles designed in memory of his grandmother. These workers are not the story. They never are. The story is always the royals, William IV, Elizabeth II, Charles III. The staff are footnotes. Yet without them, the house could not function. Consider the numbers. Clarence House, at its peak under Charles as Prince of Wales, 101 full-time equivalent staff. Buckingham Palace, 491 full-time staff. The Queen Mother's era, perhaps 40 to 50 staff. Even in its quietest periods, Clarence House required dozens of people working behind the scenes to maintain the illusion of effortless royal life. What does that cost? The 2021 to 2022 Clarence House Annual Review hasn't specified total operational costs publicly, but estimates suggest millions of pounds annually. Heating, electricity, water, maintenance, staff salaries, security, insurance. The sums are staggering. And this for a house that, compared to Buckingham Palace, is modest. The question persists. Who pays? Technically, the sovereign grant funded by a percentage of Crown estate profits covers royal household expenses. Clarence House, as a royal residence, falls under this umbrella. But the Crown estate is a complicated entity. Revenues that could flow to the Treasury instead fund the monarchy. In effect, the British public pays, indirectly, through a system so convoluted that most people don't understand it. And the staff? They work long hours, often for salaries lower than comparable private sector positions. The prestige of serving royalty is supposed to compensate. Many find fulfillment in the work. Others, like those 100 employees who received redundancy notices in September 2022, discover that loyalty is not always rewarded. Clarence House is Grade I-listed nationally significant architecture, protected by law. It cannot be demolished. It cannot be substantially altered without permissions. It must be preserved. But preserved for what? As a royal residence, it serves one family. As a museum, it opens 1 month per year. Most of the time, it is closed, inaccessible. A beautiful facade hiding operational realities most people never consider. The house has survived because it adapts. From William IV as modest home to Alfred as Victorian renovation to Arthur as military headquarters to a Red Cross office to Elizabeth as young family. Residence to the Queen Mother's art-filled salon to Charles as operational base. Each generation reshapes it. Each generation believes they are preserving something. Each generation erases the one before. What is stronger? The house or the need for houses like this to justify themselves? Clarence House stands, for now. King Charles III and Queen Camilla live there, waiting for Buckingham Palace renovations to finish. Eventually, they may move. Or they may stay. Charles has never liked Buckingham Palace. Clarence House fits him smaller, more manageable, more personal. But what happens when Charles dies? Prince William will be king. Will he want Clarence House? Will his children live there? Or will the house pass to another generation of royal siblings, of aging relatives, of forgotten cousins? The cycle continues. The house endures. The staff come and go. The tourists visit briefly. The paintings hang on walls. The gardens bloom and fade. The bills keep arriving. And standing at the gates of Clarence House, you realize this house was never about beauty. It was never about history. It was about the cost in money, in labor, in lives spent serving, in princesses who died alone, in staff laid off during funerals. The beauty is real. The cost is real. And the house, like the monarchy it serves, survives by never quite acknowledging what it takes to keep the facade intact. The question remains unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. Was Clarence House built for kings, or do kings exist to justify houses like this? Stand there at sunset, and the house behind you glows, pale stucco catching the last light. Beautiful. And underneath, as always, the machinery hums. Invisible, essential, unforgiving.